everyone, it's Linnea for LDRS Creative, and I'm going to show you how to put together one of the wreath cards using the Winter Wonderland Iris Shutter Kit. Now this is an auto ship from LDRS Creative on HSN, and this is the second kit you're going to get. So this die set on the left here, this is your base die set. This is from the Everyday Iris Shutter Kit, one that I've shown multiple tutorials on how to create your iris shutter. We're going to start nothing new, creating an iris shutter mechanism just like I've shown you how to do multiple times before. So I'm going to go faster through this one since we've already had multiple video tutorials and hopefully you've already had some practice with this kit. You do need 3 of those circle record shapes, 3 of your little kidney bean shutter pieces, 3 support pieces, and then you need a handle. And I'm going to use one of the new decorative toppers that's included in the Winter Wonderland Iris Shutter Kit on my card today. I have all of those pieces die cut, and now I'm going to go ahead and put this iris shutter mechanism together. I'm starting with one of those circle pieces that has the little rectangles and circles cut out, and all 3 of my kidney bean shaped iris shutter pieces. I cut them from red cardstock because that's what color I want to show. And I'm going to take those tabs that are die cut into the end of all 3 of those pieces, and I'm going to pinch and fold them up so that they just are little tabs kind of pointed up into the air. I'll do that on all 3 pieces. Again, this beginning part is not new. We're creating our base of the iris shutter mechanism. Now I'm going to take that little notched foot end of the kidney bean piece and put that into one of the rectangle die cut shapes. And I'll repeat that with the other 2 iris shutter mechanism pieces. And I'm kind of just tucking that little tab in behind the kidney bean piece that's in front, and you're going to get a complete circle that pretty much covers up that entire bottom circle piece. Now I'm taking a second circle, and this time instead of working with the rectangle cutout pieces, I'm going to work with those small circle cutouts. I'm going to take the tabs from each of those kidney bean pieces and push them up through the back of this second circle. And once I get them pushed up through the back, I'm going to flatten those tabs, and that's going to keep these secured in place, and it's going to start forming the base of the iris shutter mechanism. So just pushing all 3 sets of those tabs up through the back of a second circle, and then flattening those tabs down real well so that they don't catch on anything. Now here's where I'm just going to test to make sure everything's working. I'm holding on to just that bottom circle piece, and I'm twisting the top one left and right, making sure that everything's working. Now it's time to adhere the handle onto the mechanism, and I have 2 pieces. I have the base of the handle, which is cut from red, and then I have that decorative topper, and I've cut that from white. You're going to see on this topmost circle piece there is a little stitched outline in the shape of a square, and your handle piece is going to nestle perfectly into there. So I'm going to take some liquid adhesive and add it only to the white portion, only onto my circle die cut piece. I don't want to add adhesive onto the red that's showing below because those are those movable iris shutter kidney bean shaped pieces, and you don't want any adhesive interfering there. So I've only added adhesive in between those square stitched guidelines and not through any of the cutout parts. Now I've turned my mechanism over to the back, and there are 3 areas with skinny stitched rectangle portions, and that's where we're going to adhere the support beams. The support beams have 2 score lines right in the middle-ish of each of them, and I'm going to score on each of those score lines, just kind of fold over to create a little bookend or book binding piece so that it kind of looks like the spine of a book. It's not going to fold flat. You want that little extra space in there. That's going to give our iris shutter mechanism some space to move. Once I have all 3 of those support beam pieces folded, I'm going to adhere them onto the back of the iris shutter mechanism. Make sure you're not adhering them to the front yet, only to the back. So I'm taking my liquid adhesive and I'm going to add a little line of adhesive in between all 3 of those stitched rectangle guidelines. And then I'm going to take my support beam piece and adhere them right onto that adhesive. There is a shorter side and a longer side to these support beam pieces, and it truly doesn't matter which side you adhere down. You just want that first score line to be butted right up against the edge of your iris shutter mechanism, right around that circle. So I'm going to place all 3 of those and just give them a second. I'm going to squeeze them down for a second to make sure that they're adhering. And then I will make sure that they are all open. Again, do not adhere these to the front yet. And then I'm going to make sure everything's aligned. On my 3rd circle piece, so I'm lining up those cutout portions, making sure that my kidney bean pieces are all lined up in that circle area. And then I'm going to add some adhesive onto the top portion of these support pieces and just wrap them around my entire mechanism. You can see there my left hand is kind of holding everything, making sure that all those pieces are aligned. And then I'm wrapping the support beams around. It's important not to get these too tight. You don't really want to pull them and make sure that this is a completely flat mechanism, because those innermost pieces need to be free moving. So that's the purpose of having the 2 score lines on each of those support beam pieces, so that these can freely move back and forth in the middle. Now I'm just going to test this to make sure everything's working, and to do that I'm holding only onto that bottom circle and then twisting the handle back and forth. Now it's time to add this decorative topper on, so I'll add some adhesive to the back, again avoiding that cutout arrow area, and then I'll just add this right on top, and this is going to give the recipient clear direction on what to do with this card. They're going to see that little arrow and they're going to know to pull that handle down to open and then close the iris shutter mechanism. So now your iris shutter mechanism is complete, and all you need to do is add it onto your card. Now, again, this is an auto ship item, so you may have already created with the Everyday Iris Shutter kit, and if you have created one of the spring or floral wreaths that were in that kit, this one's going to come together just the same. I have one of the pattern paper pieces and I glued that onto an A2 card base. Now I'm just going to decide how I want to turn my wreath. And once I have that in place, I'm going to make sure that my iris shutter mechanism is closed. You want to make sure this is closed so that the handle is in the proper position for when you send this card. And I want my handle to be right there in the top right hand corner. So I'm going to just kind of hold these pieces together, and then I'll flip it over onto the back, and I'm going to add my foam adhesive in between the support beams and where my little kidney bean pieces are sticking out. So I'm adding my foam adhesive in 3 areas all around the back side here, but avoiding any cutout areas. Anywhere where you see red cardstock in my example, you don't want to add adhesive. I'm going to hold this together, and then I'm going to just place this down onto my card. Now I'm going to open up my iris shutter mechanism and pop my sentiment in. In other videos, you've seen me go ahead and adhere the wreath portion on top and then drop my sentiment in, and you can absolutely do that, but the wreath die cut here has a smaller opening than the Everyday Iris Shutter wreath had, so I decided to just go ahead and pop that sentiment in right now. Then I added more foam tape on top of my mechanism, again avoiding any cutout areas. Anywhere where I saw my red cardstock peeking through, I don't want to add adhesive. Then I chose some character ephemera from the Winter Wonderland Iris Shutter kit, and I'm going to open up my iris shutter just in case I have some of these hanging over. I want to make sure that I'm not covering up the sentiment too much. I'm going to pop some foam tape behind these guys and then add them onto the bottom of my card. And this one is finished. You can embellish with any glitter, ribbons, gems, rhinestones, whatever you want to complete this card. I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you again really soon. Bye!